Ballon d'Or. Not Dior, d'Or. Ballon d'Or 1, Ballon d'Or 2. Scott, what is the answer?
Shall we go with Claudio Braga and Kizarides just now?
Yeah, the answer is actually Elton Kabangu and James and Alan Forrest in bounce games. They of course scored both between them. Scored and assisted 3 goals in a 3-1 win over Dunfermline in the bounce game during the week. Hello and welcome to Heart Standard. My name is Joe Skedden. Sorry for that shambolic introduction. I was like, Ballon d'Or. It's not Dior, it's d'Or. Fucking hell. I'm delighted to be joined by Scott McIntosh. Scott, how's it going?
Yeah, very well, mate. How are you yourself?
I was fine up until that shambles of introduction and then the F-bomb. So I'm really apologies for anyone listening with their children. I really do apologise for that. Now, we are here to look back on the month of August. Scott and I will be chatting through the player of the month, the biggest surprise, the unsung hero, room for improvement, and best performance. Craig and I did it at the end of July, and it's something we'll try and do, or start of August, we'll something to do at the end of each month. Thank you to those who have joined us or joined us live. Please let us know your answers in the comments as we go through them. But before we get into it, Scott, I was listening to Scarce Around the Funnel on what would have been Tuesday, but I think you recorded it during the window hadn't closed just yet. So how happy have you been with the transfer window?
Yeah. I think on the Monday I gave it a bit of a sort of B-, and I think that was mostly down to the fact that we're still trying to integrate the majority of those signings into the first team picture. But I think in terms of covering positions, trying to cover areas of weakness that Jamestown identified when they done a bit of a sort of squad overhaul as a report last season, I think we've hit most targets. I think the one it's the one discussion that'll never go away just now amongst most fans. I think the right wing back question will still linger. I think until at least Borshavink comes back for his injury, and even then I think it'll still be a bit of an issue because we've got no real sort of direct replacement should he have any sort of persistent niggles over the coming weeks and months. So I think a B- was probably fair given what we've done so far.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's the one thing I'll say, and it's always kind of hard judging a transfer window so soon after it's closed, because we could be looking back in 4 or 5 months and Borchgrevink might come back later this month or the start of next month and be excellent up until January and think, oh no, didn't need a right back all along, and it was absolutely sorted. So yeah, but you're kind of trying to look into the future while also looking into the past in terms of what needed to be addressed. And remember writing something at the start of the week, and I kind of cast my mind back to what we would have wanted in the team when it started at the start, well, before the transfer window opened. And I kind of looked at, you wanted more size, we got more size. You wanted more pace, we got more pace. We wanted more attacking options or support of Lauren Shanklin, we got them. We wanted some more width, attacking width. We got that. Probably wanting more pace at this in defence. Got that. Ended up wanting and slash needing a new goalkeeper. Got that. And then the one that Hearts fans have been on about for so long is that kind of box-to-box midfield presence, and it looks like we have got that. So like the only two things I kind of picked up on were the size of the squad. I think ideally the club would have done more business going out the way, but as if you feel like a broken record, it's a lot more difficult getting players out than it is getting players in. And then the right back situation, just how that's going to pan out. The only thing I would say about the right back situation in a positive, well, kind of in a positive, is that it's not as if we've got loads of games coming up. It's the fact that we've got Rangers on a week on Saturday, and then there's a week break, and then it's home to Falkirk, and then there's like another international break round around the corner. So it's not ideal, but it's not as if it's there's games coming thick and fast, and it does give you a wee bit of time to hopefully build Borchgrevink back up, both his fitness and get him used to the robustness, the rigours of Scottish football. And following on from that, just before we get into the individual awards, how happy have you been with the start of the season, or what have you made of the start of the season?
Yeah, I've been happy with the start to the season. I sort of commented on this a little bit on Monday. I think some of the some of the grumbles and some of the concerns, I think they're all valid. So I think people have picked up on the fact that we're having to make multiple changes at half time to sort of, swing the game back in our favour. There's obviously been the constant grumbles about trying to shoehorn one or two players into the squad, into positions that maybe are a little bit alien to them. But I think the reason why some of these issues have been highlighted on in such a large degree is because I think there's a genuine feeling amongst fans that people can smell a little bit of blood off the old firm just now. I
Yeah,
think a little bit of feeling that if there's ever going to be a chance to either, split the old firm or, supersede both those clubs, that time is probably fast approaching. And I think because of that, there's a little bit of anxiety creeping in. I think 2 months ago when Derek McIntosh came in, I think this type of performances that we've been seeing recently, I think a lot of fans would have been well on board with it had the situation in Glasgow hadn't occurred. But I think now people are a little bit more anxious to see things happen a little bit more quickly than maybe they would have done a month or two ago. And that's probably what's been fueling some of the disgruntlement. And I'll include myself in it. I was really frustrated at half time last Saturday because I just felt that there were simple solutions to fix the match. But thankfully, this is where Derek McIntosh needs to get praise. He hasn't sat on those decisions too long. He's made those decisions at half time and he's made those tough choices when he's needed to as well. So to be fair to him, he is fixing it. We just need to get ourselves into a situation where we're not causing the problems in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of hope that through the international break, through the window, that kind of settles down when we do begin to get a more kind of settled, both kind of style, identity, etc. But yeah, the fact that you've got a manager who's quite proactive in reacting to what he's seeing is encouraging, rather than going, oh, it's not quite worked, why don't I give it another 10, 15 minutes? And then you're changing around the hour and then you're giving yourself even less time to change it. So yeah, I think that's fair. I think we won't stay on it too long, but it's just added so much more to the Rangers game coming up, and the fact that our abhorrent record, both against Rangers recently and just our in general at Ibrox, is so bad. But I do think that the last few weeks, while not perfect, while it shows there's plenty of room for improvement and there's going to be stumbling blocks, I think there's far more to be positive about and to be excited about, especially going on coming out the international break and going to Rangers, who don't look in great shape. They are hanging on to Russell Martin, and I do feel it's going to go one of two ways, where the Hearts are finally going to win, or it's going to be the usual, where the Rangers manager under pressure gets a nice, easy, comfortable 3-0 win.
Yeah, this is always the concern, and I think I discussed this a little bit the other night, where I do feel like the mentality of the manager now is different to what we've had over the last couple of seasons. And I think we are in a position where we can take advantage of their weaknesses. Again, I think there's one or two areas of the park where I've got concerns about Rangers maybe winning individual battles, and the right-back situation is one of them. Gassama has been one of their few sort of minor success stories since coming in. And my concern is that in a one-on-one individual battle against maybe a Steinbender or a McAtee, he gets the upper hand, and that's maybe just enough to get them a result. Whereas I think if you look at the balance of the two squads, I would say we're definitely coming into this one in a far better frame of mind. It's just whether these players, just turn up and perform on the day. That's going to be the big question mark. And hopefully they do. There's no reason why we can't. No reason why we can't exploit Rangers at the back, especially at set plays. The way Rangers are defending at set plays just now, that it just sets us up to take advantage of that concern, how we've started the season in that area as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if one of the biggest focus points for McIntosh over the next, well, they're off this weekend, but for the last couple of days, but more so when everyone comes back and the few days building up to the Rangers game, is the mentality aspect of it, going to Ibrox and not being, don't want to say scared, but not being fearful or not playing within yourselves, going there and kind of putting yourself across, not playing within yourself, and just feeling that you can go there, believe you can actually win. And I think that could, if we can get through to the players that way, I think that could be a huge difference. Now, before we get into the awards, Heart Standard is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. So, Scott, best player. Who are you going to choose?
I think in terms of consistency, I think Stuart Finlay has probably been the most consistent. There's other players who have came in and done well over maybe say 2 or 3 games. But I'd say Stuart Finlay's probably been the most consistent of the squad so far. It's not to say he's not had his moments. I feel like last week I felt he was poor in terms of his involvement in the Livingston goal. But generally speaking, away from that, he's been really solid. And he's also helped us not only defend set plays in our box, but popped up with some important goals as well. So it was hard to kind of look past him.
Yeah, he was one who I considered him, and I think it was basically between him and Claudio Braga for me, and I went for Braga just because of the impact he's had in the opposite third, where not just these 3 goals, but I just feel like he has been a real bright spark off the bench in a couple of games. I think he really helped transform the Motherwell game, helped Hearts become more of an attacking threat against St Mirren. Yes, albeit he did miss one of the penalties, but I just thought he has brought energy that has been perhaps missing last season. I think Vargas brought it a couple of seasons ago, but then there was like an energy missing in the final third last season, and it's also like the vibe aspect where he's really got the fans on board, and it's I think just his presence has really helped with that kind of the engagement aspect, the support. So I went for Claudio Braga, and the fact that he has now won the club's player of the month for the last 2 seasons. Let's see, hit the wrong button there. Embra Craig, player of the month, Braga. We just look at a different team when the wee man is playing. And this one here. Wilson McFarlane playing for Scotland Unders. Just saying, yes, I've got it on, paused it in the background. And the first shot was a brilliant save by McFarlane, but the referee did not give a corner kick. Moving on to best performance. So this one is open to interpretation. It could have been a performance with an individual performance. It could have been a period of the game where Hearts put in a really good performance, or a performance in general. Could have been the manager's performance as well. What did you go for, Scott?
Yeah, I think for this one, I'd like to sort of highlight the first 45 minutes against Aberdeen. I think that was probably the moment in the season so far where Tynecastle felt like its old self. You know, there was massive cheers just for making tackles, pressing the game, winning the ball high up in the Aberdeen half. And that was a nice reminder of what Tynecastle can be in the right conditions. People could maybe argue that point and say, well, we do that against Aberdeen most of the time anyway, and that's maybe a fair argument. But that to me was probably the most I've enjoyed sort of watching us, at least in the league games so far this season. Yeah,
in terms of one of the highlights of the season, beyond maybe like a goal or individuals, is Hearts fans the rendition of Gorgie Rules very early on in the game, it just felt like every challenge was cheered, every throw in won, every corner won was like cheered wildly as well. It just felt like how Tynecastle should be, and my performance came within that. I thought for an individual performance, what Cammy Devlin was absolutely tremendous against Aberdeen, and I think he epitomised what probably McInnes wanted from that game, where it was, or what we want to see from Hearts at Tynecastle, where we're in the opposition's face, we make it really difficult for them, make it uncomfortable for them, and Cammy Devlin was really good. And it wasn't just the stuff we know he's good at, as in the pure defensive midfield ability and qualities that he brings to the game, but I also thought he was he was really good in possession as well. I thought he was kind of short and sharp. There was a couple of times that maybe he vacated his space and it did leave space behind him, but with his 3 centre-backs and at Tynecastle, you can kind of get away from it. So yeah, he was, even though he's not been brilliant the last couple of weeks, I thought his performance against Aberdeen was one of those where you cart back to Rosenborg and Zurich as well, where he just had this dominating presence in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I think sometimes when he's the sole number 6 in the team, I think he takes that responsibility and he does well with it. I think the issue is when we try and shoehorn him and Penny into the same midfield, it sort of stifles the team in terms of going forward. And that's maybe been a little bit of an issue last week against Livingston, that first half. You sort of saw the drawback for having the two of them in the same team. But that was a really good performance that night. And that he helped set the tempo. The likes of him, felt Harry Milne was really playing as a proper left wing back in that game. And like you say, because we had that cover for the back three, who all done really well that night as well, it just all kind of it merged together.
And it did show that sometimes the back three is useful. Yes. YouTube Disciple said, Finlay Walk Player of the Month, Braga gets the headlines. This is probably the most difficult one. Unsung hero.
I know. I think a lot of players have had right praise. Anyone who's played well, I feel like they've had praise when they should have played well. I think the unsung hero probably is McAtee, because he is having to play out of position quite a lot, and he is still showing up. I felt he was a lot more comfortable second half last week, playing as a normal fullback with somebody offering the width in front of him. I felt sorry for him in the first half last week. Not only was there an issue with playing him right wing back, but then you had Cammy Devlin playing sort of right in the midfield three, and there was just no combination play between the two of them. So I have felt sorry for him, but he's shown up. He's still doing well. He's still coming up with important tackles. He's showing you what he can offer in midfield, even playing from that sort of alien position. And I'd say he's probably the unsung hero. He's the one that's really not getting any sort of credit for his contribution to the team over the last month or so.
It's exactly who I had as well. Just because I thought, like you said, everyone who's kind of got praise or the opposite have kind of deserved what they've had. Whereas McEntee, it's been an awkward start, because you looked at, he's probably thinking, I'm going to come in and play as a midfielder. We saw what he can bring to the midfield in pre-season, and he's probably thinking, right, this is going to be really enjoyable after kind of being moved around position when he was in at Walsall, because he could play different roles. But I think against St Mirren and against Livingston, you can see, I'm always sceptical whether there's much of a difference between right back and wing back, but watching McEntee, you could certainly see how big a difference it can be, and just the different positions you get, the space you get, where you get the possession. And it was like against Livingston, it was like Livingston were like, Devlin and McEntee can have the ball as much as they want. That's fine compared to the opposite side. Yeah,
exactly. And I think he will be finding this all quite surprising, because he probably thought, with the size of squad that Hearts had when he was coming in, he probably thought that there wasn't going to be a repeat of what he had at Walsall, where he was playing between 2 or 3 positions. So that's probably caught him off guard as well. But I love his attitude. I think, he's won his fair share of 50-50s. He gets involved in those crunching 50-50s. 1 or 2, I thought, if he just mistimes them, he's definitely going to be walking off the park. But I can see why the club have looked at him. I can see why Derek McInnes likes him. And I do think when we can get him a consistent run of games in midfield, he will be a real player for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's someone, I think, showed where Derek McInnes talked about him being a really good midfield option against specific opposition. He didn't name the opposition in Scotland, but I thought we could see what against Sunderland, how useful the games where he can be so effective, where he has just been, he's not going to be asked to be on the ball too much, but asked to support the attack, to get in opposition face and just make it difficult. I think he could really thrive in that role. A part of me is really looking forward to seeing a midfield three of Aguio, Magnuson and McEntee, because that's just 3 big laddies that can play a bit of football.
Yeah, definitely. And even, like say, Devlin or Benny in the centre, we sort of and sort of McAtee playing either side of them. I think that just brings a bit more balance to the midfield compared to what we had last week in the first half. So yeah, I'm hoping he can get that run eventually. It might still be another month or so before it happens, but yeah, he's stuck in with it and he's never really let us down, to be fair, although he's maybe not offered much going forward. He's not really been a defensive liability. If you look at any of the goals that we've lost over the last few weeks, none of them have really came through him. So he's still doing his job, and yeah, he was the one that came to mind when I thought somebody who maybe just hasn't had any due praise over the last few weeks.
So you touched on just a wee tangent, but you touched on Rangers and their threat, and you kind of talked about the full kind of full-back area. Would you play Steinvender ahead of McIntyre at right back against Rangers?
I would go to a 4 and I would play Steinvender there.
Yeah.
I just think Steinvender's just got a slightly better turn of pace and the positional sense that comes with it as well. I just think that would help against what Rangers are going to offer. I would go to a sort of a 4-2-3-1. I think that would be the best way, sort of trying to negate their sort of 4-3-3 that they'll probably go with. So yeah, I probably would bring Steinvender in for that. And then it's just a case of whether you see fit to maybe put McAtee in as one of those two at the base of the midfield. That would be an option that you would have as well. So yeah, for me it would be Steinvender, because I do think that's the one area of the pitch where I'd have a bit of a concern about playing Rangers just now. It's just in terms of how they hit us down that left flank. Migoma's not shown much from a defensive standpoint, but he has shown a willingness to support the left winger when he's played so far for Rangers. So that would be the area I would want to try and concentrate on in terms of shutting Rangers down.
So again, we're over a week away, and we'll preview it next week. But would you play Kazarides in front of him?
So I would play Kazarides. Again, I'm not expecting these things to happen, but I would have Kazarides in the team, and I would. I think a lot of the focus on Kazarides, and McInnes has maybe been guilty of saying this himself about calling him an impact sub and maybe not somebody who you could rely on for 90 minutes. Play him for the first 60 minutes then. Let's go a couple of goals in front against somebody, and then you can worry about bringing him off and bringing somebody else in to help. I just feel like he's done enough to earn another opportunity. I felt like the system against St Mirren, it just didn't help because everything was played in front of their back five. It wasn't a day for playing proper wingers. We should have had narrow forwards playing that day, finding space in between the centre halves and the wing backs. But Kazarides and Kabori just played the whole game in front of their full backs, and it just never really happened for either of them. I think against Rangers, he would get more joy playing in that position. And I've got no fear about him coming back and helping out as well. So he would be somebody else I'd be looking to start in that game.
Yeah, sorry for the tangent. I'll bring some comments in. Kazarides for me, says Chris, regarding the player of the month. Braga close second. Both players absolutely terrorised teams, and their players' hearts have done really well to get. Greg says Harry Milne as an alternative shout for unsung hero. The biggest compliment you can make is that we haven't missed last season's player of the year and James Penrice. Absolutely. And I'll come back to that one at the end. Martin Bergenis about says performance of the season. Controversial shout is Dundee United game. It's our most complete performance, and we did not deserve to be losing at half time. Without the goalkeeping error, we win that game comfortably. Dundee United look pretty decent this season, and very few teams will pick up 3 points at Tannadice. I think that's a very good shout. And I suppose that I'll save biggest surprise, because that'll kind of naturally take me on to I've called it the award room for improvement. You could look at it as biggest disappointment. You can look at it as however way you want. But I would, I think for me, and I'll just lead into this because that's chosen, is goalkeeper. Goalkeeper's situation the past month has been difficult to watch. I think we've kind of both said about, we kind of like didn't trust or have faith in Xander, but kind of happy to see him kind of play through his difficult spell. But now you're getting to the point where it's starting to be a real issue, and you look at, even just looking at the stats side of things, and this is, I just had a wee, before coming on here, I just wanted to have a wee look on Stats Bomb. His save percentage is 45%. This is where you're wanting the goalkeeper to be in the 60s. His expected save percentage is 66%. So he's got the biggest difference in the league in terms of the goals. So they have a metric called goals saved above average. So it's like basically just says what you expect the goalkeeper to save. He is minus 0.53 per 90 minutes. So that's essentially almost costing, if my maths is correct, costing a goal every other 90 minutes. And unsurprisingly, it's worst in the league. So you look at going off Martin's point there and Livingston, I think those are two games that Hearts win comfortably if it wasn't for goalkeeping errors. And what we'll say is that the goals conceding-ish Livy and Dundee United, you could point a finger at other players within that, but when it gets to the shot and it gets to the shot on target, you expect your goalkeeper to save it. So that's where I kind of went for room for improvement. I think if it's and there's a big area for improvement there, what we've seen over the past month.
Yeah, I'd probably call it more room for improvement as well, based on who I've picked. And I could have looked at Xander Clark, or I could have looked at somebody like an Alan Forrest, but really I don't see them getting as much game time over the coming months, especially Xander Clark. I was looking at Lauren Shankland potentially, in terms of maybe not hitting the ground running since the league campaign started. But then again, if I look at what's caused that, I think some of that does come down to some of the formation and personnel decisions from the manager as well. So I kind of felt like that would have been a bit harsh on Lauren Shankland. So I've actually picked Derek McInnes, because I do feel like there's room for improvement there in terms of, us being a more cohesive side moving forward, trying to get some partnerships going throughout the team, getting some combination play going. So I think that's something he needs to work on. And the good thing is, I think he's aware of that. I think he's aware of how he needs to get maybe a bit more consistency in his team selection going forward. So I went for Derek McInnes because I felt like some of the issues that have been caused throughout the team have been caused by the selection. And Xander, if we hadn't signed the goalkeeper, it probably would have been Xander Clark, would have been my selection. One of the ones you admit there is the goal we lose against Dunfermline. I think that's a preventable goal as well. I think again, he gets caught. He just isn't shifting his feet quickly enough just now. That's what's caused most of the goals that we've lost.
He's been. Sorry, I was just saying that's probably the biggest thing. It's like he's been laboured, and after the Dunfermline game, you're thinking, right, that's maybe just rustiness because he didn't play the vast majority of last season, picked up an injury, and then his injury was kind of managed during pre-season, and you just think, right, that's maybe just getting back up to speed. And we're kind of still saying that about the Dundee United game, but then you're looking at his other aspects of his game, his kicking. I don't think it's like speaking to people at St Johnstone or people to cover St Johnstone. His kicking's never been his biggest strength, but it still was okay, and if it was it was solid enough. But then his kicking is just like. Even that's just, he feels like, looks like he's lacking confidence, where he's just like getting under the ball, he's getting no distance on it, or it's going all over the place. So there's wee elements of just different parts of his game that built up, and it's, I think, spread like an uneasiness amongst the support, and I would imagine the defence as well, knowing that they've got a keeper that is not really saving shots.
It's a shame that competition for places hasn't really spurred them on this year compared to what it done a couple of seasons ago when Craig Gordon came back from that initial injury. That actually prompted Xander Clark to have his best spell in a Hearts jersey for a few months. So it's a shame that hasn't happened. And he's still, I would say, the age that he's at, I'd still say he's in what should be his peak years as a goalkeeper. But whatever's happened last season in terms of the number of games he's missed in the injury, it's certainly had an impact on him, because in terms of his agility, it's just not there now. And there's no, when it happens once or twice, you can look at it as an outlier, and so he still look back at some of his other consistent runs he formed for Hearts. But it's now getting to a stage where it's becoming less and less apparent that that's the case. And I think they've done the right thing bringing in another experienced goalkeeper just to try and help supporting that department, because we had 3 shots on target against us against Motherwell, and I'm not saying he's particularly at fault for any of the goals, but again, he's kicking in that. It's all leading to chances coming, unfortunately, and pressure coming on against us. So I think he was probably quite a good shout.
I suppose I'll group this in with the room for improvement. Biggest disappointment. Robert Bond says, a low point for me was the attitude of some sections of support, abandoning the stands after Motherwell 3-0 up. The team showed the grit and commitment to come back to 3-3. So I think there's 2 or 3 elements to this. I think one of the things where it's probably kind of overlooked, unless you have it for a big surprise, but I maybe should have had this for Unsung Hero or tried to fit in somewhere, but the ability and the quality, the ability or the mentality to come back from these deficits. Again, you can go back to the team spirit within that, the management as well, when what they're saying at the coaching staff and management team, what they're saying at halftime. I think that deserves huge credit. For leaving at 3-0, I've got to admit, Robert, I probably would have done the same. Probably would have went to a pub that was showing it on the dodgy stick and watched the rest with a pint in my hand. But on a more serious note, I do think that something I've been a wee bit disappointed with was like the quickness or the eagerness that people have, some fans have like kind of questioned McInnes. I'd almost like almost to say that he's the wrong manager. I think there's like a difference between like questioning or criticising certain decisions, but then stretching it further, saying he's the wrong man for the job or he's holding back. I just think it was far too reactionary, especially when you consider this is a team that's been unbeaten, certainly within 90 minutes.
And they're coming back, so they're showing there has to be fostering something there, and I think it was something I touched on at the start of the week. I think what you're seeing with the benefits of these comebacks is the work that he does with the players Monday to Friday, and clearly the confidence and the sort of the attitude and the fitness that's being installed in that team.
Yep.
You know, we're scoring goals rather than losing late goals. We're the ones who look the most likely to come back and win games. I think the point that Robert makes, it'll be interesting to see what happens should we go a couple of goals down again in a home game. I think more fans will stay because there's now evidence that this team can come back and can get results in those circumstances. So look, at the time, it's not a great situation to be in, try to come back from 3-0 down with half an hour to go at home to Motherwell. But at the end of it, we would have won that match. If that game had went on another 5 minutes, there was only one team winning that. So I think, yes, look, I've just pointed out there's room for improvement with Derek McInnes, but I think you've got to make sure that you're balancing those concerns with also giving him right praise for what he's done with maybe certain players or just the general sort of attitude, work ethic and fitness that he's been able to install into the team in quite a short space of time as well. The other stuff can still come. He said it himself. So I think most of the things that we point out on a week-to-week basis, he's highlighting when he's doing his post-match interviews in terms of trying to integrate players, trying to deal with the bloated squad, trying to get the right team selection. He's not shying away from the problems that he's facing just now, and I think he needs to be given time to do that. If people have got an issue where I'm coming in and getting the job, then that's completely fine, but I think you've just got to make sure that you're balancing praise when it's due alongside any sort of potential red flags that are showing up as well.
Yeah, a couple of things you said there. Fitness, definitely, the team do look a lot fitter, and that's, I think, it's something that we spoke about last season. And then on the flip side, like, I think you make a really good point about the next time you go down maybe 2-0 at Tynecastle, that it does. I think the team have started to build a bit more trust, and I do appreciate that. You actually look back on it in last season, bottom 6 finish. I think fans are maybe right within going, this team, honestly. So it does feel like the team do, and this is not a McInnes issue because he's inherited it, but the team do need to get fans back on side because of what happened last season, especially those who've remained in the squad. Just before the last award, David Sheehan says, if Sanders starts are bad, then sure there's nothing to lose. Giving McFarlane or Stoner a shot win really gives the lads first team game time. How old was Gordon when he got his shot? So I think if it wasn't for the fact that Hearts brought in Shvolov, I wouldn't be surprised if McFarlane was that far away from being given his chance, especially after the Livingston game. I do think he was certainly very close to being involved previously, and I know for a fact he is very, very, very highly rated by Derek McInnes.
Yeah. Naturally, what they didn't want to do was bring him in for one game, sign a keeper, and then not be able to put Liam McFarlane back out on loan.
Yeah,
I think what they've actually done there is quite smart. They've got to make sure that Liam McFarlane gets game time this season. I feel sorry for Harry Stone. I feel like I'm just dismissing him, but for me, just in terms of Yeah, in terms of what I've seen out of both of them during their own spells at other clubs, I feel like Liam McFarlane's already surpassed Harry Stone in terms of on that ladder, he getting that chance at the club. But let's say we'd played them at home to Motherwell and we were still looking to bring in Swaller anyway. That means that Liam McFarlane then could potentially be further fourth choice all season and not get game time. So I think that it was a risky move, but it was the right one to make. Now we can let him go back out on loan and progress as he should be. He will be our number one moving into the next year or two. I've got no doubts about that. So I can understand why the club didn't make that decision to give him a chance. And I think they would have been really close to doing it. I think he probably would have been in a couple of team drafts in the weeks leading up to those last couple of games, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got real excitement, because you usually get excited about like strikers coming through or wingers, but yeah, real excitement of Liam McFarlane coming through. So last award, and it is the biggest surprise. Now, I will go first here because I will lead into basically praising you, Scott. My biggest surprise is that Hearts didn't just break their transfer record, they smashed the transfer record, doubling it, effectively doubling it, what they played for Mirsad Bezlija to find Agio, and already seen a glimpse of what he can bring. I will lead us in because you and your predictions for the season predicted that Hearts were going to break their transfer record. I just didn't think it would happen so quickly and when
I made that prediction,
emphatically.
I said in the next 12 months. So I was expecting it to be January or next summer. I wasn't expecting it to be this window. So I was pleasantly surprised as well. But I did think it was something that was on the cards.
Yeah, I thought it would be just using USG as a measuring stick. I thought it would be two or three transfer windows down the line where Hearts have maybe sold two or three players or flipped two or three players for good money and reinvested that good money, but they spotted an opportunity here. They kind of writing about it. The piece will hopefully go out tomorrow. Spotted an opportunity with Agio and they took it, and hopefully it's going to pay dividends on the field and off it when it comes to selling them on. Scott, what was your biggest surprise of the month?
Probably Claudio Braga's prolificness in front of goal. I think when he first signed and with the clips that I'd watched of him, I think the way I'd described him at the start of the campaign was that I was expecting him to provide a bit more of a Stefan Adam role within the team, to be a foil for other strikers, bring a bit of a technical side to the front line. And he's done that as well, but he's already popped up with 6 goals. I mean, in that 45-minute appearance against Motherwell, he really could have had 4 or 5 goals. He had a really good chance for a corner kick. He then has the shot which gets hit against the post. He has the other one-on-one that Kazadida sets him up for as well. So, yeah, I've been very surprised at just how dangerous he's looked in between the posts. And long may that continue. Obviously, McInnes has talked about getting the balance right between him and Shankland and them both wanting to drop at times. But, yeah, I've been really pleasantly surprised at just how many goals he's scored so far.
Yeah, I mean, he is, in terms of just looking at the stats, he is very high up on, he's top for goals per 90 minutes, XG per 90 minutes, shots per 90 minutes, third for expected goals per shot. That's like in terms of how good a chance he's getting. A wee bit further down for goal conversion, but still not too bad. So yeah, he's someone who is, I thought he was going to be more of a facilitator and just open up space for Shankland to get back into that goal scoring form. So I think he has been a real pleasant surprise. He was probably one that we signed, and just where he came from, his background, and I just thought I was more excited about Kazarides, and I was probably more doubtful about Braga, but my doubts have been absolutely obliterated by just how well he has done. C1SCOK1D says Braga likes to drop deep and create space, so I'd like to see him play alongside a forward of pace. Also think Kibori, Kabangu and Wilson need to be given a decent chance before the January window. I do think Braga and Shankland will be like the front pairing, certainly in the short to medium term. I do think that when looking for if McInnes thinks Hearts need a goal, he'll be keeping Shankland on, because I think he has got so much faith in Shankland being the guy that's going to score the goals.
Yeah, I also think he's probably given Shankland quite the pitch in terms of keeping him as well. So I think there's a bit of an element to that. I think for me, the issue's been more the fact that McInnes can't get the right team out there to get the best out of Shankland so far. I think when he mentioned about re-signing him, it was all about, well, there's going to be wide men now at the club. We're going to have Lawrence in the box. He's going to be sniffing out chances, but we've not really played those types of formations yet. So I do feel sorry for Shankland in that respect. I think you can see that second half against Livingston, what we can do when he's a bit more engaged in the game and there's a bit more attacking impetus within the team. Whereas in the first half, it looked very similar to spells last season, where he's very disengaged because, again, we're slowing the game down. There's not much support coming for the midfield area as well. So I do think he's got a big part to play, but it is a situation where if that wasn't to happen over the next 2 or 3 games, then Derek McInnes doesn't have an excuse not to bring somebody else in and give them a chance. Whether it is somebody like Kabangu or Kabori that can maybe stretch the game higher up the park, then so be it. But it's getting to a stage now where I think if this was to continue for another 2 or 3 games, although he's got my sympathy, I do think Derek McInnes would have a decision to make, and it would almost look a little bit negligent if he didn't do that. So hopefully Shankland can start coming up with the goals. But he's had a couple of assists as well already this season, and he could have had a couple of other ones last week in terms of the chance for Braga and Agiu as well that he created. So he's still doing good work dropping in. It's just that we need him to be in the box a little bit more, and we need him to be involved. But again, that's not all on him just now. That's on the manager to try and get the best out of him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've very much up on top, high on Lawrence Shankland's fan club list. So I'm always willing to give him more time and more rope for him to have that impact. And again, he's not been scoring, but like last season when he wasn't scoring, I think he was still being productive in an attacking sense. And that's still, looking at the stats again in terms of maybe not his goal scorer, but his creative play is still very, very good. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how that plays off. Liam King just says McFarlane coming off ... I paused the Scotland game, so it's only after 2 minutes, and this is devastating news. Just Hearts goalkeeper situation. Jesus. Anyway, before we finish up, Scott Ember Craig says, what do we think the formation looks like long term? If we go 4-4-2 with wingers, we're only picking 2 of the centre midfield options. If it's 4-3-3, then wingers plus Shanks, so missing forwards. Good question, and it's not a. I don't think there's a simple, straightforward answer. I think there's going to be a mix between depending on who we're playing and the game state.
Yeah, I think somewhere between the 3-5-2 and the 4-3-3 is kind of where I see us going. And the thing with the 4-3-3 is you don't always have to necessarily play it with wingers as well.
Yeah. It's
a formation that, given our personnel, we could quite easily play with Kabori and Braga playing either side of Shankland. So it's something we can play and still have plenty of attacking threat in there as well. I think the signing of Agiu would suggest that we are going to probably, I think, seldom go 4-4-2. I think there will always sort of be 3 men in midfield, and it'll be looking to get that balance, try to get McAtee involved in there as well, alongside the likes of Benny or Cammy. So, yeah, I think it'll be between the 3-5-2 and possibly a 4-3-3 going forward. But it's good that we've got the choice, and it's good that we've got a system in place where we can change it during games. I know that's been a source of frustration in terms of the fact that we've had to make so many changes, but in fact, the team have shown that they're quite adept to doing it and being very flexible and got positive results out of it. So again, that highlights the good work that McInnes is doing Monday to Friday that you're maybe not seeing as a fan. He has been able to actually implement 2 or 3 different systems in a very short space of time that the players look comfortable in playing in. So again, that's something we should look at as a positive, because 1 or 2 of our competitors just now, if you look at Aberdeen and Hibs, they have one system and one system only. Neither of those 2 sides look capable of switching. Hibs especially
won't have the centre backs for it.
Hibs haven't played a back 4 for about a year. Like Hibs, their centre halves are not comfortable playing in a back four. So I think the fact that we can chop and change should give us an advantage over our rivals over the coming months.
Also, I don't think they even have a right back to play as a to be forcing Cadden
Well,
in.
it would be Cadden, wouldn't it? That's the thing. And you see with guys like Bashiri and that, they're fine playing central in a free, but as soon as guys like that get pulled out into wide positions, they look really uncomfortable. Hanley would be the same, O'Hora's the same, Iredale. Like, there's a reason why he switched it to a free last season, and look, it's paid dividends for them, but they'll have an issue if they do have to make any sort of system changes.
Yeah, and when you mentioned Aguilar, the sign of Aguilar, Denton McIntosh mentioned that he can kind of play off he kind of came and played off the left when he first came onto the pitch. And I think that kind of, you look at that and where he can just, where we've seen it under, I think it was Jeffries, where it could look like 4-4-2 with one narrow midfielder and then one winger, or it can change to a 4-3-3 where you've got Braga coming, maybe drifting off the left, Shankland and Kizaridis, or Braga and Shankland and Kizaridis playing as a winger on the right and Aguilar just off the left. So, yeah, that flexibility.
Levine liked that as well, didn't he? He liked his
Levine.
Prince Boabin, Don Cowie. There was always those guys that he'd kind of play sort of over to the left or right, but they were more narrow and they would come in and sort of play as a free as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Especially when you got Harry Mill and his ability to get up and down the flank on the left-hand side as well. David Sheedy says, I'm happy with how we progress and believe the future is bright. Further to that, what do you want to see off the pitch in terms of development, growth, fan base and stadium size? David, we have not got the time for that on a Friday afternoon, so I will save that for another day or the next time Scott is on. And the last thing I will do is bring up Mikey says, hi Joel, I emailed you about the changing rooms, just wondering if you got my email. I did. I keep meaning to read it out at the end of a podcast. So basically, the Changing Room project is one of the many excellent projects run by Big Heart. So this is reading off Big Heart's website. The Changing Room has one goal: to promote men's positive mental health through the power of the beautiful game. Big Hearts is one of the first football organisations in Scotland to deliver this programme. The Changing Room is now taking place across 19 other clubs in Scotland. Open to men aged 30 to 64, this 12-week programme offers participants opportunities to meet up, engage in activities together and start positive conversations about their mental health and well-being. Since 2018, we've welcomed guest speakers including Scottish Cup winners Andrew Webster and Ryan McGowan, former Hearts midfielder Ollie Lee and former Hearts women's captain Marielle Caney. In May 2022, the Change Room received His Royal Highness the Duke of Cambridge. The programme is held in the Shed at Tynecastle Park on Monday evenings from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So I'll put the link to that in the bio, and yes, I would encourage anyone to check it. I've never been along to see what they do at the change rooms. I've been to the Maroon Memories and I've been to a couple of other projects that the Big Hearts run, but it is of course an excellent resource that the club have at their hand, especially using football as that kind of driver or encouragement for people to go along. So please do check that out. Scott, thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely weekend. What are you doing without Hearts this weekend?
Well, I'm going to take a bit of a risk on my weekend and watch Scotland tonight, but I'm not a big fan of international football. So if the winner loses, it doesn't ruin my weekend. And then after that, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what I've got planned.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back again next week when we can turn our attention fully to Rangers on Saturday at Ibrox and hopefully ending that effing hoodoo. Goodbye.